The hosts feel it would be a little unkind to present this podcast without just a word of friendly warning. We are about to unfold the story of Frankenstein, a man of science who sought to create a man after his own image without reckoning upon God. It is one of the strangest tales ever told. It deals with the two great mysteries of creation, life and death. I think it will thrill you. It may shock you. It might even horrify you. So if any of you feel that you do not care to subject your nerves to such a strain, now's your chance to. Well, we've warned you.
Hello and welcome once again to the Frankencast. I'm the mad scientist Anthony Bowman. My pronouns are he, him, and I'm joined as always by...
the creepy grandparents that you have locked somewhere in your house, that is Eric Velasquez. My pronouns are also he, him. I'm guessing they're both grandparents. I know that we have obvious grandmother. I'm assuming the other guy that just kind of shows up is grandfather?
Yeah, that seems right. I think so.
Okay.
We're talking about House of the Wolfman.
Starring Lon Chaney.
Yes.
The grandson of Lon Chaney Jr.
Yep. So, definitely from a long line of incredibly great, genre actors. He's fine. He's fine. He's definitely like coasting on his name a little bit, but I mean, it's fun to have him in this, especially because this movie is such a throwback to those movies.
100%. It is an homage for sure.
Yeah, obviously it's black and white, and I mean the title, obviously, harkens to House of Dracula and House of Frankenstein and everything.
They never did the House of the Wolfman, so might as well, right?
Yeah, and it also has a really kind of like the old Dark House, or
it's a lot of the anything with Boris Karloff or Bela Lugosi in it.
Yeah, or the Vincent Price House on Haunted Hill.
There was a little bit of that when Bella Reinhardt first shows up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But also, let's go ahead and do some warnings. I mean, the violence here, there's nothing to write home about, so don't worry about that. The scummy racism, though. But is it? Question mark. It is, but it isn't.
Yeah, there is. I think it's I mean, obviously, there is the character is kind of like a shitty racist dude, but I think we're supposed to find that but I don't know. There's some the fake foreign dialogue is.
Oh yeah, that's awful. No. That is pure racism. I would not have condoned it. I would have been no, we're not gonna speak in this weird stilted pattern. We're just gonna talk normally. Thank you.
Yeah. It sometimes feels like people, it's if you know that one thing is bad, I can't imagine this movie having Asian characters and using the really bad fake Asian language that school kids do. Everyone knows that's bad, but somehow they did this and they didn't realize that it's the same thing, just moved one continent over basically.
Right.
I was not happy about that. That was definitely the worst part of this movie for me.
It was a decision, but I think it was the wrong one, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I do appreciate that the guy literally stuck in cowabunga. But also, was that good? Was that, I don't know. I don't think so. I mean, whatever, man. You do you. It was a paycheck, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
All right, so let's get this party started. So we're going to start off. It is black and white. We're outside of a foggy, windy castle miniature. Clearly a miniature.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We get these two crazy kids pulling up in their old sedan.
Yeah. Again, this is, we see this in the Monster Mash movie, Rocky Horror. Mm-hmm. This thing of kids showing up on a stormy night and needing. Well, in this case, they're not here to get out of the rain so much as that they've been invited.
They were called here.
Yeah. And this is what really made me think of that Vincent Price House on Haunted Hill thing, where everybody comes and there's a wager who's going to stay and all that.
Right. Who will get the inheritance?
Yeah. So
it's Reed and Mary. Mm-hmm. Obviously, Reed is the guy, Mary is the girl. They seem more like boyfriend and girlfriend at this point, but they're not.
Yeah, at first I thought so too. I mean, it seemed like a couple, but yeah, they're twins actually. And then when they get inside, or if like first, this castle, they're like talking to each other. Like, can we? I think
Mary
Reed
wants to.
Yeah, Mary's not as into this, but like they hear that they're looking for the heir to the Reinhardt fortune, and that if they go and like meet the right people or whatever, maybe they will inherit some mysterious fortune. So it seems worth it.
It's like a lottery ticket.
Yeah. So they go inside and they meet
Barlow.
Yeah,
with his jacked up teeth.
Yeah, again, he's very much like Karloff's character in Old Dark House, who's named like Morgan, I think.
Right, but he's the mute, as they would say.
Yeah, he lets them in, and then they meet the head of the house, Dr. Bela Reinhardt, played by Ron Chaney, as you said. Bela Reinhardt is very like exposition-y here at the beginning. He's like, I brought you here because Reed, you're a talented athlete, and Mary is a brilliant scientist, and I'm trying to get a bunch of archetypes of talents here to the house to like test you out and see who's worthy of my family fortune, basically.
Almost a little bit of a cabin in the woods with the archetypes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, but whoever I decide will be the heir to my estate, they get all the good stuff.
Mm-hmm. And so then we kind of get like a scene of various other people. So first we have Conrad Sullivan, who arrives.
26.
He's young and he's a premier antiquarian. He's an expert in antiques and
authentication, basically making sure that nothing's a fake or forgery.
Yeah, so Barlow comes to take Conrad Sullivan. He wants to be called Sully. He takes Sully's stuff to his room.
Then we get Elmira.
Mm-hmm. Elmira Cray, and she's just straight up a femme fatale.
Purely. But there's more to Elmira than meets the eye. But to be fair, there's more to everyone that meets the eye, which is very good. I like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, as Reinhardt is introducing all of these people, Elmira
he's
kind
basically
of
giving
shut
their
him
stat
down.
sheet.
Yeah, and Elmira's like, you keep that to yourself. I don't know these people. I don't want this spread.
Right.
I don't want who I am spread around here. So that kind of shuts him up. And then we get the last guy, who we've
the problematic character.
To. Yeah, he's a classic big game hunter type, Archibald Whitlock. He's yelling at his footmen, who are like three black men who ostensibly we'll find out as we go that he is like taken from like an African tribe at some point.
Yeah. One that he calls Leopold, but Leopold's not Leopold's name.
Yes, yeah. Later on, he basically says like, I keep three guys at all times, but I don't want to like have to deal with them, so I pick one. I call him Leopold. He's the only one I talk to. He talks his little gibberish language to his coworkers, and they deal with everything. And they're like, what happens if Leopold dies? And he's like, I just get a new Leopold. It's always Leopold.
Right.
I don't know the other guys' names. I don't care. I don't want to know. Like, he just sucks, and he's supposed to suck.
But also there will become a point where maybe he doesn't suck as much as he seems, but also he still kind of sucks, regardless.
Yeah, that is the, like as we said, like this movie definitely, like, it's making, like, he looks bad, and we're supposed to think he looks bad, but then the movie kind of sometimes falls into its own trap and ends up being right there with him, wallowing in the racist mud or whatever.
Yeah.
So that's a little rough. Like, him saying all this stuff about gibberish and Leopold, like, that's fine. That's the character. It's not...
There's also weird times where it's like, no, he actually respects these guys for the most part. At least the one he calls Leopold. Mm-hmm. But like you said, for the rest of it, it's just him spouting absolute garbage.
Yeah, I mean, he's very, big game hunter. He's just a classic, like, toxic masculinity dude.
Very much so.
Yeah. And, like...
What's to send them to sleep with the horses? Because he'd prefer them be there instead of the guest quarters, which...
Yeah, and he's like,
liking that.
Horses are fine, servants. They're really... they do what they're supposed to, and I would never say my servants are in any way better than horses. Horses are great. Just treating them like animals. It's and of course,
Sully being good guy, Sully makes a joke about it. He's like, you know what, Reed, I'm going to call you Azrael because that name pleases me more.
Yeah, and Archibald kind of threatens him, like, like he's just he takes himself very seriously. Sully is obviously like the comic relief, and doesn't really take anything seriously. I think at that point, Reinhardt, now that everybody's arrived, he's going to take them to their rooms for the night. And he's very clear, do not explore too far into the house.
Don't leave this floor. This is it. This is the only floor you're able to see unless you're accompanied by Barlow or myself. Yeah,
we've got this one hallway. All the guest rooms are on that hallway. If you need to cross the hall to talk to one of your other guests, that's fine, but stay in this vicinity. He leads them all to him, and they all kind of go into the room, and there's this kind of silly sort of foreshadowing moment where spooky music swells, and Reinhardt looks back at them really ominously and everything. But eventually it's just a little later, everybody's kind of separated into their rooms.
But not so much, because Elmira is just like, hey, Reed, what's up, buddy? How's it going? How you doing?
Yeah, she just strolls into his room without knocking, and he's like, you don't knock? And she's like, knocking attracts attention. I don't want anybody to know I came in here. So
right. I only want to attract attention when I want to attract attention.
And as she says that, we see that she has attracted attention. We see that there's a painting on the wall with the eyes cut out, and we can see somebody looking out at them.
Yeah, I mean, we knew that was going to happen, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, but so basically at this point, Elmira starts pumping Reed for information. Right. She's almost flirting with him. She's like, well, you and Mary, you seem like a cute couple, but... And then it's like, oh, no, we're brother and sister. And she's like, got you.
And she's like, that makes sense, because it seemed like you're like that Mary's kind of into to Whitlock.
Archie, yeah.
And, she keeps asking, she asks him why he's here, but she doesn't really offer anything back. She does not give him any information. She's like, so, this is all about the heir to the Reinhardt. Are you related to any Reinhardts? And he was like, I mean, I don't know. I don't,
Mom says no, for sure.
Yeah, but
what about
my
your dad?
Yeah, he died before we were born. So that's the only reason I was able to convince Mary to come along, is she's really wanted to know where we came from, and that maybe this is a chance to reconnect with that side of the family. And at that point, we see we cut over to Whitlock's room, where Leopold comes in.
Can we call him Kakumo?
Yeah, I think that seems fair. I think So that's his actual name, Kakumo, and he says, the men found some tracks outside. We can't identify. Yeah, no animal we've ever seen, and these are big game hunters. They've seen every animal. And Whitlock's like, it's fine, it's whatever. It's probably probably they're just distorted or whatever. I'm sure it's something we know. And they're like, there's dried blood outside as well, and it's dried blood someone tried to clean up and they didn't do a good enough job. We found it, but the fact that someone was trying to clean it up
that's suspicious.
Seems ominous. Yeah.
Right. And at this point, Whitlock's kind of like, all right, I got you, Ben. I got you. And then Kakumo was like, hey, there's something going on up there. And Archie's like, yeah, I know about it. I've been watching it the whole time. It's watching me. I'm just playing it off.
Yeah, so the peephole paintings are in all of the rooms, and everybody's being watched.
Right, exactly. We're going to find that out. But it seems like at this point, Kakumo and Archie are kind of more equal than master-servant.
Yeah, it seems specifically when Archie and Kakumo are together alone, no one else sees them, then he can kind of be genuine with him. He has some sort of facade that he needs to keep up, that when anytime someone's witnessing them interacting, he has to kind of treat Kakumo as less than and everything.
Yeah. Now, with the other guys, no, he is absolutely a piece of shit. Just Kakumo is the only one he's like, yo, we're pretty much equal. And only behind closed doors. I do wish it would have spelt that out a little bit more, hey, it kind of does at the end, but not enough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think so. While they're talking, we see Sully come into.
They all go into Reed's room.
Yeah. Yeah. Sully appears. I think Mary also comes in. At that point, we see that the rest of everybody is noticing that, or
it really starts with Sully.
Sully notices, and then he Sully's smart. Like he's kind of, because he's the comic relief. It doesn't seem like it, but he's like, oh, books. You got some antique books. I want to look through them. And he starts flipping through one, and then he's like, hey, Reed, come here. I want to show you. He's not just reading
through one. It's Alhazred's record of transmutation. Any H.P. Lovecraft fans know at least that name, yeah.
Yeah.
But yes, he's like, hey, you got to see this. It's like this really nice leather. Reed, check this out, buddy.
And there's a little note that he's showing Reed in the book that's like, basically, look, there's someone's watching us through the portrait, but play it cool. And Reed's like, oh, yeah, interesting, very interesting.
At this point, it looks like it's Barlow. They're like, oh, it's probably Barlow or the doctor.
Yeah, so in fact, then Sully calls Reed out into the hallway, and they discuss out in the hall, and which I thought was weird. Like they're kind of, kind of talking in hushed tones, but they're still just right in the hallway, and Barlow is standing at the end of the hallway watching them, and they can see him. It seems strange that they're comfortable, but Reed is like, what do? We gotta leave. And Sully's like, aren't you curious? Something's going on. We should get to the bottom of this.
Suspicious.
And we can't, I mean, with the weather outside, we can't leave right now anyway, so we might as well figure this out. And Reed's like, yeah, but somebody's going to be watching my sister while she's changing and sleeping. I'm not okay with that. And Sully's like, she could either come up with, she could, maybe Elmira can stay with you, and
Mary's in my room.
Yeah, we'll protect them. And if she won't do that, maybe she can manufacture a reason. She says the painting looks creepy or whatever, and she can hang a sheet over it.
Right. And Reed's like, she'll just hang a sheet over it, buddy. Thank you.
Yeah, I like that plan better.
But Barlow's still standing there, still as a statue. No movement, no reaction, just there.
Yeah. And so then we cut straight from that to dinner, where we've got all the guests and Reinhardt. Sully is complimenting Reinhardt's book collection. Mary's complaining because the meat is extremely rare.
Right. Except for Archie. Archie's he's digging it. He's like, heck yeah, that's how meat's supposed to be, baby, bloody and rare. Let's go.
Yeah. And we get a bit here where Reinhardt brags about the fine bone cutlery that Barlow hand-whittled. Finally, then Whitlock's like, why are we here? You've kind of given us this base idea about an inheritance, but something's going on here. What's the deal here? Again, Reinhardt's like, each of you is special in your own way, but I want to see how special. I want to see whose unique set of skills is the best.
Right. Tomorrow night, we're going to have a competition, and the winner will be selected by process of elimination. Mm-hmm. Emphasis on elimination. So it's like, oh no.
Yeah, it's very ominous.
We're playing Squid Game, 1940.
Yeah. And Reinhardt's like, well, with that, I'm going to head to bed. You guys can finish dinner. Then I think Archie's like, I'd like to speak to my men. How can I get to them? And Reinhardt's like, oh, Barlow will take you.
Nah. No, Barlow will not take me. I got this.
Yeah, I'm a tracker. I can find them.
I tracked an albino lion all the way through the desert. And Sully's like, that should be the easiest thing to do.
Yeah. Yeah. So once Reinhardt does leave, everybody's like, all right, let's talk about these fucking paintings. Like, what's up? Like, what are we going to do about this? And Mary's like, what paintings? Like, she's just completely missed all of this.
She's supposed to be the smart one, and she's the last one to notice.
Yeah, and she's kind of mad that Reed knew and didn't tell her. And Reed's like, I mean, Sully told me, and it was very all hush-hush, and I just didn't get a chance to. But the whole time, Mary and Elmira hate each other. They're at each other's throats the whole time. But at least Reed and Sully are kind of on the same team. They're, really trying to figure all this out.
And Archie is off on his own, doing his own thing.
Mm-hmm. So they're like, if Reinhardt doesn't want us to wander around the grounds, he invited us here. So if he had something that he needed to hide, why didn't he just hide it? This doesn't make sense.
But if he wanted to get rid of us, why didn't he just call us in one by one and just do it that way?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, the things aren't adding up, and everybody's a little suspicious about what's going on. And then Sully's like, Reinhardt had all of this prepared and planned. He knew everything, but he didn't know that Archie was going to bring his servants with him.
Right.
That's really thrown everything off, and that's why things are kind of out of kilter. So maybe that's what we need to kind of focus on. That's our kind of inroad into figuring this all out.
Right. So now we're going to cut to Archie and crew tracking the creature in the rain.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, these footprints, they're off, man. They're not normal footprints. And Archie's like, yeah, you're right about that. That's true.
Yeah. Meanwhile, up in her room, Mary is brushing her hair and like is so aware of the painting. She can't help but keep looking at it. She is not sneaky at all. And she, every time she looks at it, she'll like pull her bathrobe tighter. Like she's uncomfortable. She's feeling watched, which makes sense, you know.
However, Elmira, who is also being watched, does the exact opposite. She's like in her skimpiest lingerie, you know, just lingerie, nothing else. And she's like putting on a show, doing her nails, watching the eyes watch her. She's like, I'm putting on a show for you, buddy. Here you go.
Yeah, it's very like pin-up style lingerie, and she's laying on this kind of fainting couch, and like, yeah, she's enjoying this. But then she sees a large spider crawl under her door, and she does not like that so much. Yeah. But then the spider kind of like
crawls back.
It like looks around and turns around and crawls out, and she's like, that was weird. So she like goes and opens the door, or she puts on her dressing gown, of course, and then opens the door and sees that the spider is like, seems to be leading her. Yeah, it's like walking down the hallway. So
I like this. I don't think I've ever seen a pet spider before. That's cool.
Yeah, this was a really fun bit. So yeah, like it leads her up some stairs to eventually like a very dungeon-looking door, and she hears this like, you know, crone-like witchy voice reciting
it's
a
clearly
poem.
A dubbed-in voice, but yeah, telling her like about the curse.
Yeah. So Elmira goes into the room, and there, of course, she does see this old crone lady in a wheelchair.
Triple amputee? Which is weird.
Yeah, very strange.
I mean, not that she's a triple amputee, just the fact that they would, you know, I don't know.
Yeah, that there's still one seems strange unless she had some sort of very specific injuries.
Right. Tell us this lady's backstory. I want to see what happened here.
Yeah. But she says that Elmira's blood was calling out to her.
Right, but it's the strongest because we're the most directly related.
Yeah. Your other siblings are also calling out to me. And Elmira's like, sibling? I don't have any siblings. What are you talking about? And she's like,
John. Oh, yeah, you do.
Yeah, you know you do. And Elmira's like, wait, you're my grandmother. I'm a Reinhardt? And she's like, yes.
Oh, yeah.
But she's like...
Maybe not so much Reinhardt, but we'll talk about that after I tell you about my brother Bella, who I named my son after, actually.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you know, she tells this whole story about, like, you know, he went away to study medicine, and he started using this foolish name, Reinhardt. It's such a waste. His real name is Bela Frankenstein.
Dun, dun, dun!
Yeah, so, you know, obviously the movie's called House of the Wolfman. If you were wondering why we're talking about it, here we go. So, Bela is trying to hide his true identity from his medical peers when he went to school.
Because they'll mock him and not let him into the medical... They won't let him play all of the medical doctor games, as it were.
Yeah. And so, yeah, he resents having to hide it, but he also... resents his family connections. He is a man of science,
right.
And he doesn't like that his grandmother here has gifts.
Well, his mother,
his mother. That she has these, she talks about the blood calling out to her. She knows about curses. Yeah, she is. Yeah. It's never explicitly said, but I mean, she's very much like Maleva in the Wolfman. She's very Romani coded, and. But Bela, obvious, and of course, Bela is the name of the character that Bela Lugosi plays in the Wolfman, right?
Exactly.
So
we got homage after homage.
Yeah, so we have this sort of clash here between like the worlds of science and the worlds of like supernatural sort of mysticism.
Right. So tell you what, kiddo, take the silver key, which is another Lovecraft reference. And, that'll protect you. The only other silver thing we have in this whole house is that particular cane on the wall that looks very familiar if you've seen The Wolfman.
Yeah, straight up replica that they bought at Universal Studios or something.
Right. We've got Chekhov's cane. Let's see where that comes in.
Yeah. And then she even starts reciting the Wolfman poem from the Universal films.
Well, she gets one line in before she's interrupted by Bella,
Yep, he bursts in, and he is not happy that Elmira has met his mother. He sends Elmira back to her room, and he's like, should you need anything, rather than wandering the halls, Barlow will be right outside your door to assist with whatever you might possibly need. Obviously, this is a threat, you're not leaving because I'm going to have a guard at your door.
Exactly. So we've got some inkling what's going on here, and for some reason, grandmother introduces her, says, I am Vodoma versus Moldova.
Yeah.
Did we just swap the letters around? Is that it?
I guess, sure. Yeah. So then we go back to Mary in her room. She's trying to read a magazine, but she just can't stop thinking about that she's being spied on. So she finally goes over to cover the painting, but ends up looking eye to eye with the person spying on her. She screams, and suddenly we have all three of the men, Reed and Sully and Archie, rush in to help her. And she's unconscious on the floor, and right away Archie, being the tracker, is like, oh, I see what happened. She tried to cover the painting.
Yep, she saw it.
Yeah, she got scared, she fell. Right. Yeah, it's all perfectly clear.
Yes, as a matter of fact, the difference between predator and prey in the wild is who spots who first, which isn't right, because predators are carnivores usually, whereas prey is herbivore.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. If the elk spots the lion first, they don't become the predator. They just get away.
Yeah. I think the only time that occurs is when a crocodile and a lion get to the same watering hole. That's about the only time that occurs.
Yeah. So at that point, Reinhardt also comes into the room, having heard the scream, and he asks what's going on with Mary. And the rest of the guests
you should know. You were watching us.
Yeah, they finally, now that they know Mary has seen whoever was looking and that they know she saw him, they just get it all out on the table. They confront him.
Yeah, but he's like, oh no, it couldn't have been me. I was with Elmira.
Yeah, and Elmira does confirm, yes, he was with me. And they're like, well,
had to be Barlow.
Yeah, and she looks at Barlow and really stares him in the eyes, and she's like, no, it wasn't Barlow either. And they're like, how do you know that? And she's like, I just know. Just trust me. I know. Reinhardt, again, is like, well, I'm sorry this happened. This was not my intention. I'm going to make sure all the portraits are covered because nobody should be watching you. Mm-hmm. And I'm thinking about actually having everything mortared in. Yeah, and everybody's like, we just want to leave, though. We're done with this whole game. It's not like this is not a mistake that you can fix. We're done. Nope, can't leave. Sorry, guys. Yep, roads are surely flooded. You're just going to have to stick around. And Whitlock looks outside and he's like, yeah, he's right. We're going to have to stay here till the storm subsides. Yeah, it was pretty rough even getting here. Mm-hmm. We just barely did so. So the doctor's like, hey, I'll tell you what, Mary, and as compensation for scaring the crap out of you, how about I just give you a bunch of books? And you'll enjoy that. Yeah, she's supposed to be the brainy one, the science-minded one, so he, gives her that promise. And he tells Barlow to go around and cover all the paintings. And he's like, I'm going to go to bed. Mm-hmm. And then, so once he leaves, Sully's like, that still doesn't answer who it was then. If it's not Reinhardt and it's not Barlow, there's somebody else in the house that we've not even encountered yet. And that's even scarier, probably. Right, exactly. Also, he notes, hey, Archie and Barlow they don't like each other at all. Mm-hmm. Yeah, something's going on there. Elmira's like, I think we might not know who it is, but Reinhardt does. No, she says, Doc, Frank Reinhardt. Yeah. And then Mary's like, well, if this is a contest of memory, you should know. His name's not Frank Reinhardt. It's Bella Reinhardt. Yeah. And it's like, oh, honey, you missed that whole cue. Yeah. Yep. So at that point, Elmira leaves. And Sully follows her out into the hallway, and he's like, all right, you know things. Something has changed since we were at dinner. What do you know? What's going on? And she's like, follow me to my room. We'll talk there. And he's like, oh, okay. Well, sure, why not? Yeah. So there she's like, tell me what you know about your father. And he's like, I don't really want to talk about it. Right. By the way, she's scooting just slightly closer to him. He's scooting further away the whole time until he can't. And finally, Elmira's like, okay, let me just tell you what I think, and then you can confirm or deny it. Was your mother maybe attacked? And And Sully's like, how would you know that? And she's like, I know who your father is.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, my mother was also attacked. And she was left wounded.
Yeah, and Sully's like, no, that can't be. My mother was crazy. The story of what happened, it was so outlandish. She ended up institutionalized. I don't know what really happened, but what she said was just too crazy to believe.
Yeah, same story, bro, is what Elmira says.
Yeah, and she's like, it was true. Yeah. And then Sully was like, wait a minute, you said you know who my father was. And she's like, yeah, he was my father too. He's like, wait, so and she's like, yep, we're siblings. We're all siblings. All of us here.
Yep. Even Archie? Oh yeah, he's your brother too. Damn.
Sully's like, okay, so, all right, I've got a question for you though. Like, I've been, going through all these antique books, and I keep coming upon this crest that I've never seen before. What do you know about that? And she's like, oh yeah, that's the crest of Frankenstein.
Dun dun dun.
We're siblings, and we're not Reinhardts, because Reinhardt isn't a Reinhardt.
He's a Frankenstein.
And he's like, so it's true. We're the children of Frankenstein.
Yep, I love it.
Yeah, so
but he's like, I gotta go do something about it. And she's like, calm your horses. Chill out, dude.
Yeah, so at that point, she puts it all out. She's like, okay, our grandmother is locked up in a dungeon room upstairs. He's like, I don't care about, I want to, I have to kill Reinhardt. Like, he's a monster. And she's like, let's just, let's wait. We'll all talk about it in the morning. And he's like, okay, good night, sis. Like,
awkward hug, couple times, and then handshake at the end. Just yeah, make it weird. All right, so let's cut to Archie just chilling.
He gets a knock at the door, and it's Barlow.
He's just like, I hate you, and I know you hate me.
Yeah, but he's just being very open and honest here, and he's like, but I am going to win this contest, and then I will be the master of the house, and I will be your master. So you should probably start acting like it now, because if I decide I don't like you, you're fired. Right. And I assume this is the only opportunity you have for work and for a place to live. So you better stay in my good graces.
Right, exactly. The only time he actually tries to lord over anyone, aside from just being swinging his big dick around.
Yeah. So back in Mary's room, there's a knock at her door, and she opens it, and there's just a stack of books there. Barlow is left for her. So we cut straight from that to like the next morning, and Mary's
she's just reading there, and it's like light all of a sudden next morning. Reed comes in, time to go, let's go. Yeah,
she just stayed up all night reading. And he's like, all right, well, I think the water, might have subsided. Maybe we can leave. And she's like, no, we can't leave. Like, I've been reading all this stuff. Like, you will not believe what I've been learning. And Reed's like, I thought you wanted to go. And she's like, no, it's different now.
Right. Things have changed. It's like Bella knew each one of their triggers. So he's like, if I give her books, she's going to stay here. And if she stays here, Reed's going to stay here.
Yeah. So then we see over in Archie's room, he is shaving with a hunting knife.
A bowie,
yeah. And then a letter slides under his door, and it's so goofy. Like he's using the bowie knife. Well, he just hears the
sound.
And without even seeing if it's a friend or foe, he just instantly throws the knife, stabs the letter to the floor.
Isn't the floor stone? I know I'm overthinking this way too much. Like, stone and metal don't really mix that well,
Yeah, I think you're right.
Okay. It definitely doesn't stick unless you've thrown it incredibly hard, and that's an incredibly hard form of steel that I don't know about.
He goes over and picks up the letter, and it's a note from Reinhardt who says he'll be gone all day. He'll be back at dinner at 6 p.m.
Promptly at 6 p.m.
And at that point, Elmira knocks on Mary's door and wants to speak to Mary about her mother. And, again, was she attacked? Was she scarred and disfigured? And Mary's like, no, I'm not going to have this conversation with you. Go away.
She's like, oh, I know she was. I think you found something out about it pretty recently that you've been holding from Reed, right?
Yeah, but Mary's having none of it.
So she does say, I didn't want to tell Reed. Or, she'll talk about later, I guess, more in depth. But
yeah.
about the being adopted.
Then we go back to Whitlock, his men, or to Whitlock's men, and they're outside, they're tracking, and this is the scene we alluded to earlier. They're speaking in a fake African dialect. Yeah, don't
call it that. It's just bullshit. They're just saying bullshit.
Mm-hmm. Like they literally say "ooga booga" at some point.
Right, literally. It's like, guys, don't do that.
I feel like maybe they're justifying this in the like there was around in the 50s and 60s there was also like this fascination with like witch doctor and like cannibal tribes and stuff. I mean, like at the same time that the Monster Mash was a big hit, there was the witch doctor song that had the sort of like gibberish nonsense lyrics and stuff.
Well, a lot of the old EC comics and what are they called? Not Stranger Tales, but maybe they were Stranger Tales. Had things to do with on the African continent.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I understand the possibility that this is what they're doing is nodding to that time period, but this movie was still made like 5 years ago or whatever.
Well, I hate to tell you, Anthony, this was 2009 when this movie was made, so that's more than 5 years ago.
Okay, yeah. So, but even still, 15 years ago, this was not okay. And they could have made reference and paid homage to those kinds of things in a way that felt a little less gross to modern viewers.
You know what I would have liked to seen in this scene? Haha. Anyway, would be Archibald just turning to look to the other guys and be like, knock this shit off. You're just doing this for other people. Stop it. We're just us out here.
Yeah, like if they spoke English to each other when no one else was around, and then this Ooga Booga stuff was these tribesmen playing a part for the dumb white people around them, that would have been a really great subversion of all this.
Yeah.
Where they could have like had the trope and like sort of broken the trope down at the same time. That would have been, you're right, that would have been the way to do this where it would have worked.
Right. But this is also when Archibald's at his best and worst, because he is basically just talking to Kakumo, and he's like, all right, so these tracks, they're bigger. I would think they would be like direwolf tracks, but direwolves are extinct. So like, what are you thinking?
Kakumo's like, the men disagree, but one of them says it's a werewolf, and Whitlock just cracks up at that, and he's like, oh, such a silly suggestion, but thank your men for me. That really just, lightened up my day. I love a silly...
my Pegasus saw that I can hunt from the air. And, like, the one dude is like, you motherfucker. Like, that Archibald is like, I appreciate you, Kakumo, but fuck these other guys.
So then we cut back upstairs where Barlow is going into... the grandmother's room, and he locks the door behind him.
But he has the cane. Ominous. By the way, that's the last time we're going to see the cane. That's the only time it mattered. So it didn't matter.
Yeah. And then we see a little later, Reinhardt is ready to meet the guests for dinner. He looks out the window at a cloud-covered full moon.
Yeah, there's no dinner on the table. What's up with that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So Mary comes in and she's like, I need to talk about all these journals I've been reading. And Whitlock's like, I need to talk about the mysterious tracks I've seen outside. And Reinhardt's like, oh yeah, it must be really difficult for you to have run out of unsuspecting prey. Especially when you can only hunt using fancy rifles and the help of all these footmen and everything. Yeah.
It's like, so you're no better than just a murderer.
Mm-hmm. Whitlock is very angry at this implication. He's like, I'm not going to apologize for my place on the food chain. And Reinhardt likes that he says that. He's like, oh, so you respect the food chain, eh? Yeah. And, Archie's like, yeah, it's easy to respect it when you're on top. And Reinhardt's just like, okay.
Yeah, it sure is. Okay. It's weird, isn't it?
And so then Elmira asks Archie about his father. And Archie's like, I never met the guy. My mother was mauled by a mysterious wild animal in the midst of giving birth to me. So she was found torn to shreds, and I was found just laying by the side of the road and rescued.
At Leopold's village.
Mm-hmm. So this really further, complicates things that, he didn't, if he was just like the great white hunter from America or England who, as an adult, went to the darkest continent of Africa and like took on these like, servant slash basically slaves or whatever.
Yeah.
That's one look. Like, that's very bad, obviously.
No. These are literally his people. He was raised amongst them.
Yeah, he's almost like a Tarzan figure who has somehow become the great white hunter. So, it really... Again, this would have really made sense if they had this whole sort of song and dance they were doing to trick the dumb white people.
Right.
But the fact that they never do that is a missed opportunity.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, so he goes into graphic detail about his mother's body as she was delivering him, which this gives me... I have questions. So did Frankenstein / Reinhardt have relationships with these women and then hunted them down and killed them? Or, like, did he just attack these women and, like, you're kind of related to me because I possibly infected your mothers?
Yeah, I had trouble, because, like, I almost thought that this was, like, implying that, like, she was impregnated by a werewolf man and then the werewolf baby tore itself out of her and she died from wounds from giving birth to a werewolf. But it doesn't seem like the guests, even though they have Frankenstein blood in their veins or whatever, they don't seem to be werewolves, like in any real sense of the word. Bella will reveal that's why he brought them here. He's like, as he's turning into the Wolfman, surprise! Yeah, he was the Wolfman all along. But, he brought them there because he says, I think I'm a mutant. And I think you all have my trait, or at least one of you do. And basically, whoever has that trait and survives tonight, you get to inherit everything that I own. Yeah, but if my mother's right, this is a curse, and only I have it, and you're all going to die anyway. So that's another problem I get to get rid of. Yeah, it's again this science versus mysticism thing where like he assumes it's like a genetic trait that's been passed along, through hereditary channels.
Well, that was a different movie. Sorry.
And yeah, Mary, I think at some point in here is like, I found all these papers, like we were adopted, and Reed's like, no, we weren't, and Reinhardt is like, we are Frankenstein, like yells it at everyone. Yeah, that's when he starts to change. Like he's telling them all this stuff about his experiment and then whether they're going to live or die and everything. And the whole time he's tapping his fingers on the table just over and over again, clack, 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 clack.
Yes.
But every time the camera cuts to his hand, it's a little furrier than it was the last time. And eventually is a full-on long claws werewolf hand. Then
he chases them. He's like, all right, I'm going to eat you guys. It's time to go.
Yep.
And I like this. Like this is what the other Wolfman recent movies should have been. This makeup job.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like, they're terrible compared to this.
Yeah, it's classic. It's not
it's updated.
Yeah. And obviously it's low budget, but it's done well. Like it's they spent the money the best way possible. It kind of like it feels to me like a little mix of like the Universal Wolfman with like the Paul Naschy Wolfman. There's something
a
like
little bit of the Wolfman from the Monster Squad.
Yeah. So he's doing a lot of like moving like he'll walk on hind legs as he's running.
Very gorilla-like movement.
Yeah. And so we've got the guests all running all over the house, him chasing them. They end up running up and getting to the grandmother's room. But,
is she talking to them, or is she like? There are weird voiceovers that's like, it's either just in their minds or I don't know where it's supposed to be, but it's clearly not yelled. But grandmother's like, "Hey, you have to go find what is it?
The abandoned experiment, I think is what she calls it,
for your salvation." Dun dun dun.
So now they're cornered because Barlow has locked them out of the grandmother's room.
Oh, and he's staring at Archie's face. He's like, "Fuck you, buddy." He doesn't say anything, but he's just smiling. He's like, "You're gonna die here tonight."
And meanwhile, of course, the wolf man has chased them up the stairs, so they're kind of stuck on the stairs. We end up like
Surprise net from downtown.
we have Kakumo and the other footmen or whatever. They have nets and spears, and it slows the wolf man down enough that the guests are able to escape.
Why spears though? I appreciate that one guy brought a gun, but why? Why did we do that? Why?
Yeah, again, these are just subtle things that like they could have done better. We know that they're big game hunters. They definitely all have access to rifles.
High-powered rifles. They all should have had high-powered rifles, just, whatever. Mm-hmm. I don't want to harp on it too much. But funny story, that doesn't exactly work. So...
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it hurts him. Bella attacks, and specifically he kills Kakuma, and this is the like sort of the redemption for Whitlock, where he honors. He says, "No, you're not Leopold. You're Kakuma." Like he finally uses the name.
Well, he shoots his father in the head. Basically, he's like, "All right, Kakuma. Whenever I cut this son's a bitch's head off, I'm gonna put it up in honor of you."
We had the moment earlier where he was like, "They're basically horses." Here he says, "You were the best of men." Again, there's all this weird subtext that I think they could have, like, just with one more, like, polished rewrite, they really could have made all this make a little more sense and made these characters more, redeemable.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because they go the extra mile to make Elmira so much more than just the femme fatale. And then they also kind of twist the tables on Mary in that she's smart, but she literally just has tunnel vision for books. That's where her entire intelligence goes. Then you have Sully, is the jokester, but he is also highly intelligent. And then, I don't know, Reed's Reed. He's fine. Whatever.
Yeah, he's the athlete, but like he never really does anything particularly athletic or impressive. Yeah. Whitlock has shot the wolf, but that still doesn't do it. The wolf attacks him. The rest of the guests run away.
Yeah. Whitlock's down.
Mm-hmm. We have, Elmira was given that silver key earlier, and she's just going around trying to find a door that it works on.
Right. Then we get a random jump scare from an old guy in a cage, who's like, "You've got to protect yourselves from your father." Yeah, okay, cool, like, man.
Some sort of nonsense riddle rhyme or whatever, and then finally. Elmira sees like a tapestry on the wall that she pulls
behind
down.
The name of Frankenstein.
Yeah, there's a secret door. That door works. She unlocks it with the key, and inside,
what's behind that door, Anthony?
The Frankenstein monster.
That's right. He's gnarly, and I love him.
Yeah, again, they did a great job with this makeup. Like, it's not perfect, but it looks good. We've definitely watched a lot of low-budget Frankenstein movies where the monster ends up looking like a potato or something. This looks really good.
Right.
It feels classic, but it feels updated. It's like it's the flat top and everything, but he's got a little bit more... Yeah, his face is just a little craggy, and like it looks like it's been through some shit,
Right, like he is a corpse that has been revived. Mm-hmm. Well, yeah. I've got bad news for most of the family, because in order... Bella kills Mary, Reed, swats Sully. So that's like almost all of his kids done, except for officially Sully and Elmira. That's it. Okay.
Yep. So Elmira manages to pull Sully away.
We get another voiceover from Grandma saying, "Hey, congratulations, you've won," basically by default.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we have, the Frankenstein monster and the Wolfman, clash into each other. We get our monster fight.
Monster fight!
We have Elmira and Sully trying to get away. They're sort of watching the fight and ducking out of the way.
But
Elmira gets Sully to like a room where they're safe. And it looks like he might die. Like he got, as you said, he got swatted by the wolf. He's injured pretty bad.
And he's pretty much like, yeah, I'm going to die. Mm-hmm. But hey, weird guy, what are you doing standing in the door?
Yeah, they notice this new room that they've gone into. There's a crest on the wall, and it's not the Frankenstein crest we've seen. It has a large Gothic letter D on it. That's interesting. Then
at the door, that's wide open, and there's just a guy standing there. Who's that guy, Anthony?
Yeah, he's standing there in a cape outside the door.
He's like, I can't come in unless you tell me I can.
Sully makes a joke because there were a few times that like Sully would knock on a door and people would talk to him through the doorway, and he'd be like, "Are you going to invite me in, or are we just going to stand in the doorway?"
Yeah.
So
we finally paid it off.
Yeah, he's like, if you're waiting for somebody to invite you in, you're going to be out there all night. Just that doesn't happen around here.
Right.
And he's like, well, I could help you. I see that you're injured, but I can't help from out here. And Elmira's like, well, if you can help, come in, hurry.
He's like, all right. So shall it be?
Yep. So he comes in, and in a kind of interesting twist here. I mean, obviously,
Dracula.
He's Dracula. He's followed by his 3 vampire brides, but usually we have Dracula and his incredibly sexy vampire brides in their flimsy little nightgowns.
Not today, baby.
Yeah, here the brides are like Nosferatu, like they have that kind of face, Dracula looks like a regular, Bela Lugosi style Dracula guy.
Yeah,
but the rest of the
girls get him.
and they just swarm Sully. Obviously killing him. Dracula says to Elmira, I have business with your father, and I believe he's here with an old friend even as we speak.
Yeah. Tell you what, you get your grandmother, you go to the tower, I'll see you in a bit.
Yeah, we have much to discuss. So then we see downstairs, the Wolfman and the Frankenstein monster continue the fight. They're smashing up the science lab. But this is such a good fight.
Because the Wolfman's acrobatic, he's dodging, he's weaving, he's jumping, he's leaping from up on high. He's surprising the Frankenstein monster. That's how werewolf should react.
Yeah, that's the fun of these two monsters fighting each other. Is you need a big slow moving bruiser and a quick guy who's doing flips and stuff. This. Right. This looks like a pro wrestling match.
Exactly.
Sometimes you have you got your Big Show or Braun Strowman or whatever, your big guy who just kind of stands there, and then you've got your luchador like a Rey Mysterio or whatever who's flipping around and everything, and it just looks cool, the two fighting styles bumping into each other.
And of course, when the big guy gets a hold of the small guy, he just starts bashing him around, but then the small guy dodges, weaves, makes him look silly. But we don't get an end to this fight, more or less. We just get an interruption.
Yeah, Dracula bursts in and he hisses at them. And then we hear a little clip of a song that we haven't heard in a long, long time, but it may sound familiar. I believe it was House of Frankenstein or maybe Ghost of Frankenstein. Mm-hmm. It's the Life is Short but Death is Long song that when, Larry Talbot met the Frankenstein granddaughter or whichever movie that was. Yeah. The villagers were singing this song.
And of course, that's Dracula saying that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then we hear an evil laugh. And then the end, a classic Universal abrupt ending. Mm-hmm. So abrupt. Didn't get a
science wheel though.
Yeah, no science wheel. They did have a good science lab, and I do, I love a beautiful science lab, but I also love a monster fight in a science lab where shit's just getting smashed and thrown everywhere, and we get all of that. It would have been nice to have that wheel, though.
Yeah. Just for an added touch. The fight was great.
Yeah.
Like you said, it was a pro wrestling match.
Yeah, it's classic, and it's kind of fun that it's even the fight is ended abruptly, so... obviously, as we said, this movie was 15 years ago. We're not getting a sequel, but we get this nice, Universal movie tease of a possibility of a sequel where we've got, now Dracula's shown up. What's he going to do? Are these monsters going to become allies? Or are we going to just have another big monster fight movie? But,
presumably there were no survivors of any actual living people, effectively.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I can't imagine Dracula wants Elmira to live. Unless he has some sort of nefarious plan for her.
She's the new bride of Dracula.
Yeah.
Who knows?
So yeah, it's a a very, very fun throwback that, it's not perfect. Yeah, I think we made it pretty clear that we have some ideas that could have made it a little better, but overall, obviously this was made by people who like a lot of the same kinds of movies that we do, and they're paying tribute to it.
Honestly, the dialogue was pretty snappy, but the story could have went one more time through the editor.
Yeah. Again, I feel like we kind of bounce back and forth. We have a lot of like low budget movies we've talked about, and there are the ones that feel like they're made by people who care, and the ones that are made by people who want money. This one is definitely people who care.
Yeah, this was definitely not made to earn money, for sure. This was just like, I think Lon Chaney wanted to do something loving for his grandfather and great-grandfather, and then everyone else is just like, no, we like the horror stuff. That's what we're about.
Yeah, and it's really nice, Lon Chaney Jr., obviously played Larry Talbot the Wolfman, and he also played the Frankenstein monster.
He did.
So it's nice that we have, in this, where he's Dr. Frankenstein, and he's also the Wolfman.
He also played Dracula, right? At one point, didn't Lon Chaney Jr. play Dracula?
Yeah, I think in Son of Dracula, he was the Dracula who went by Alucard.
Right.
The unbreakable code name.
Right. Oh, no. How could we figure that out? Oh, there's a mirror. Yeah. Exactly. But yes. So, Lon Chaney Jr. has played them all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, yeah, it was really nice to kind of bring him back and sort of do this thing. Obviously, all the other actors are unknowns. I didn't recognize any of them from anything. But, they did a decent job. Like, none of them are going to become, like, huge Hollywood stars. But
as we would know by now,
Yeah. But yeah, overall, an enjoyable movie. It's a little hard to track down, but it's worth your time if you can find it. I think the physical media version of it is super out of print, but it's certainly worth checking out if you can track it down somewhere.
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely worth a watch. All right, Anthony. Well, so, last week you released upon the world the This Ain't the Munsters XXX.
Yes, again, sorry we had to take a week off for sickness and everything, but we thought that would be a fun one to share out into the real world.
So this week, and this upcoming week, let's do something a bit softer. How about Lena and the Frankenstein? Or Lena and Frankenstein, or meets Frankenstein, sorry.
Yeah, I figured, we've dabbled in some pretty adult stuff with like the Jesus Franco movies and stuff. But now that we've broken the seal over here on the main feed, it's time to get to some other less explicitly X-rated stuff than the Munsters XXX. But
right, we're going from basic cable to Skinamax at this point.
Yeah. Yep. So Lena meets Frankenstein. This is a fun one. I've got a fun story that I'll tell next week about the first time I saw this movie. But it's it is as you said, it's a Skinamax trashy softcore movie. But it'll be fun to talk about.
Oh yeah. All right. Well, Anthony, anything else we got to say?
I think that's it.
Well, they've got us here on YouTube and Spotify. Where else can they find us?
Yeah, so you can find us on all the socials at the Frankencast, including, it looked like TikTok is going to be gone. It's back around. Yeah,
we haven't fully decided where we're going to settle on that one, if we're moving on to Clapper or something else, or Blue Sky. We're probably going to go everywhere else, too. Why not?
Yeah, we're still doing Twitter, but we kind of moved on to Blue Sky, and of course we're over to Instagram. Where, whatever social you're trying, look for us there. You can probably find us. And you can always email us at thefrankencast@gmail.com, and there's always patreon.com/thefrankencast, where if you enjoyed last week's Munsters XXX, we got a lot more of that kind of thing over there. We've done quite a few weird porn. Yeah, we've got 3 or 4 different porn parodies over there at this point.
Yeah. It's wild how many porn parodies there are.
There's a lot. Definitely not what we anticipated we'd be, discussing a lot of that doing this show. But we have fun with those. They're good diversions every now and then. Mm-hmm. So yeah, definitely check us out over there if you enjoyed last week. There's a lot more where that came from.
All right. Well, anything else to be said?
I think that's it.
Well then, to be continued.
episode. The Frankencast is a production of FCR Media. It's hosted by Anthony Bowman and Eric Velasquez. Follow us on Twitter at The Frankencast, or send us a letter at thefrankencast@gmail.com. Our cover art is by Amanda Keller. You can find her at Keller Illustrations on Instagram. Our theme music is by Vivek Abhishek. Thanks for listening.